Okay, so in this video, I would like to tell you a little bit about perfect substitutes, continuing from the previous video, and give you a little bit of the intuition here. So previously, I just told you how to go about solving it, and now I would like to focus a little bit more on the intuition behind it. So let's think a little bit more about this. What does this A represent? Well, this A really represents the marginal utility for an extra unit of X. Is the extra utility you get. This is exactly the extra utility for an extra unit of X. Okay, and it's equal to A. It's constant. Okay. Um, what is the B? The B is the marginal utility of Y, is also a constant. So when I draw an indifference curve, so the indifference curves would be AX plus BY is equal to some constant utility, if you like, CU, okay? And I CU over B, CU over A, this would be your indifference curve. If you think about the slope of this, okay? Slope of this, it would be CU over B, or the absolute value of the slope. Let's not ignore the minus, over CU over A, flip them, get rid of the CUs, you get A over B. Now, what is that slope representing? Well, that slope is representing how many units of Y do you need to be compensated if you were to give up 1 unit of X so that you are on the same indifference curve and therefore you are on the same utility. Okay, so the way that we interpret this A over B, which before I just gave it to you as a ratio, it's simply the marginal rate of substitution. Right? It's the units of Y that you need to be compensated when you give up 1 unit of X. Okay, that's the marginal rate of substitution. If you look at the slope of the budget constraint, say for example we have a budget constraint again, but the slope of the budget constraint we said is Px over Py. Well, when you give up 1 unit of X, you release Px of income. If you divide that by the Py, you get the number of Y. So this is how many Ys you get when you give up in the market. It doesn't have to do anything with your preferences. In the market, when you give up 1 unit of X, this is called the marginal rate of transformation. How I can transform X into Y. Marginal rate of substitution is what I would like to be on the same level of indifference curves. It's the trade-offs that my preferences dictate. And the marginal rate of transformation is the trade-off that the market prices represent. Okay, so effectively what we're saying is that the when I look at the marginal utility for X is the extra utility that I get for 1 unit of X. Okay, well, that is just the utility. It doesn't come with a cost trade-off. So I can actually think of marginal utility of X divided by the price of X. If you think about it, the numerator has a utility, the denominator has money. So how do we interpret fractions? Is the utility per unit of the denominator, okay? So per unit of money in this case. So this is the amount of utility you get, right? Extra utility per unit of money in X, okay? And so when we're comparing A over B with Px over Py, okay, you can think of it as comparing the marginal rate of substitution with the marginal rate of transformation and making a decision on there. Or you can more nicely think of it as A over Px versus B over Py. And this is the extra utility that you get for 1 unit of money invested in X. And this is the extra utility you get for 1 unit of money invested in Y. And where will you spend your money? You spend your money where you get the most value for every pound that you spend. Right? And therefore, if A over Px is greater than B over Py, the optimal corner solution is to spend all your money in X and vice versa. So hopefully this intuition will carry through on the other preferences that we'll be covering in the future video. See you on the next one.